So, I know this is my first video, but the topic I chose requires a trigger warning. If you are uncomfortable with descriptions of body horror, I will have a timestamp on screen for those who do not want to hear about it. I will also not be making any artwork for this section, as I suffer from trypophobia and prefer not to ruin my mental health. So, yeah. With that out of the way, please enjoy the show. SCP, which is short for Secure, Contain, and Protect, really fascinated me. Creepypasta was my first introduction to horror, but it led me down the path to the SCP Foundation, with creatures like the statue and the shy guy being very prominent in the short introduction. Admittedly, SCP didn't really pull me in completely when I was around 9 or 10, depending on when I found Creepypasta, but back in 2020, during the height of my Animal Crossing phase, I needed something to listen to. So, I stumbled upon it once more and fell in love with the many stories I never had a chance to see. Dragon Snails, 173, Infinite IKEA, the list goes on. These amazing stories are made by a large community of people, all working to create one shared universe, working with other authors, artists, and cosplayers. There's so much passion and love for the community. It's incredible to see for those actually in the SCP Foundation or fans of the work. And although there has been some drama and troubles within the community, Dr. Bright, what? They have powered through the toughest of times. Now, I think I should give you some facts about myself. I loved stuffed animals, like to a very unhealthy degree. For as long as I can remember, I have collected these creatures, mainly Webkins, and my collection is rather extreme. I used to create many stories and videos using these plush, but luckily you'll never find them because I deleted them. Even now, I still use these plush toys to help me create new characters, even some that I still use to this day. So, as I was going through the library of the SCP Foundation, I came across 2295 and 1048, which fascinated me and only increased my plush addiction. Even though I was terrified by one in particular that set off my trypophobia, I still loved looking at it and it gave me chills. So today, I decided my first video should be about these two stories. I wish to go into details of the two stories, one more than the other, and analyzing the small details within them that actually broaden the larger community of SCP. So, let's begin with SCP-2295, also known as Karos the Bear, created by K. Mata. This patchwork bear was retrieved from a crashed mail delivery truck with a red Get Well card attached to it. On the back was a note to someone named Tommy, stating that, because only time can mend all wounds. Love, Grammy. From the story details available on the wiki, there is no statement about whether the grandmother or Tommy have been located. While Karos is described as safe, only personnel with level 3 or higher clearance may perform tests, only after following the proper paperwork. Any tests that exceed 24 hours need to be run by Dr. Gurgis. Right off the bat, I really like to note how amazing the setup is with these little tiny details. At a first read, you feel like you're actually reading a proper document that you'd find in testing, and it really immerses you into the community the SCP Foundation has created. Continuing on, Karos from head to foot is about 0.46 meters, or around 18.1 inches for all the Americans, with synthetic fibers and cotton that is stuffed within. Pinned to the left side of the thorax of the bear, or the chest, is an anatomically correct heart, and a white bow around the neck. The patches upon Karos vary in fabric and color, and further testing has shown no anomalous chemical properties. When within 2 meters, around 6.6 feet, of a human sustaining major trauma to an organ, Karos enters an active state, and within 2 or more possible subjects, Karos will go to the youngest. Anomalously, Karos produces scissors, white thread, and either sewing needles or crochet hooks from its mouth. In the footnotes of this section, to quote the actual wiki, materials have included yarn, textile, cloth, cotton, silk, synthetic fiber, polyester, wool, and thread, which is another detail I actually love. These added footnotes within truly bring the whole document together in a realistic fashion. Like, you're really a member of staff reading through these for whatever reason. I don't know. I won't judge. Not my department. Using the materials at its disposal, Karos will fashion patchwork organs to replace the damaged ones, which is also known as SCP-2295 1, something we will see later on. These instances vanish, replacing the damaged organs via anomalous means. However, the locations of the replaced organs are undetermined. If no usable materials is within close proximity to Keros, it will use its own fabric and stuffing for these organs. This stuffing can be regenerated by 1 gram a day until the lost or used stuffing has been replaced. However, fabric does not have this ability, so new fabric must be placed nearby for self mending. Despite any biological or chemical properties that are lacked within the organs, no subject has come to reject them, and they function like a normal organ. How this is possible, I couldn't really tell you. That's why it's anomalous. But it really is quite fascinating to think about, especially considering what we know about this bear's origins. Even with such limited details, if the note is to be believed, a grandmother made this for her grandson in what we can assume is a time of illness. Does this woman possess anomalous properties that have gone into the bear she created, or did this bear just become anomalous without any influence of her own? But that one's a bit harder to believe. There are so many questions, and although answers are rather limited, it's quite fascinating to learn about. This is also what drives the SCP community and creates the discussions that can continue among staff members or fans alike. There were 4 tests included in Karos's file. This gave a comprehensive knowledge into the extent as well as the limits of the anomalous properties Karos presented. From damaged lungs, a failing heart, and even layers of skin, it seemed as though this bear could fix about anything. However, it seems this is rather limited, as the brain is not something Karos can easily fix. In a test performed on an 18-year-old D-class with cerebral hemorrhaging, Karos attempted to grab supplies, before becoming very distressed for around a minute. Afterwards, Karos brought a chocolate bar from its mouth, offering it to the patient before hugging their leg, a saline solution protruding from its eyes. Despite this bear not showing much emotion despite its true nature, it seems to feel genuine regret and sadness in the result of not being able to save someone. This bear was created with love that it wishes to share with others, but it seems only that love can go so far. This part of the document was heartbreaking to read. Learning the limits that Karos has, as well as how it handles such hardships, it brings out so much emotion into a small synopsis regarding these test logs. But you can seemingly feel the helplessness of this small bear. I fell in love with this SCP as it was one of the first I learned about. It also allowed me to learn that not all SCPs are monstrous creatures, but have the capacity for kindness and love. Not that the monstrous creatures aren't interesting to learn about, it also just broadens the spectrum of capabilities of anomalous creatures. However, on the topic of this, why don't we enter the more menacing of the two, known as SCP-1048, created by Trinerdios, also known as the Builder Bear. Sorry if I said your name wrong. Alright, so before we continue, I believe it necessary to once again mention that this story contains elements of body horror and can also be triggering to someone's trypophobia. Mine. So I will limit the discussion of SCP-1048 as well as not discussing 1048-B, as the subject matter is not one I wish to discuss. If you wish to read it yourself, please note of the mentioned elements in this story as put on screen. If you have absolutely no wish to hear about body horror, even if the text is limited, I will put a timestamp on screen for you to skip. No shame in it at all. Any analysis I do for these sections will not go into extreme detail, as I wish to maintain the last bit of sanity I have left. So, let's continue, shall we? SCP-1048, also known as the Builder Bear, is previously labeled a Safe Class entity, now put under the Keter class. There are 3 main classes for SCPs to be labeled as, but there is also 18 more classes available, but I frankly have never seen these. I'm sure in the future I will encounter these, but for now I want to focus on the main 3. Safe class anomalies are, as the name would imply, safe and easily contained. Any procedures are very unlikely to fail. Euclid class anomalies are rather unpredictable, meaning more diligence is needed to contain them. SCPs like 173, 096, and 049 are among the highest Euclid class anomalies. Keter class anomalies are some of the most dangerous, as their containment must be extremely extensive, and the Foundation sees high priority in eliminating this particular class. The most well known of these is SCP-682, also known as the Hard to Destroy Lizard, one I might cover in the future. In the document on the SCP Wiki, 1048 was previously labeled as safe before the designation being crossed out, something you can actually see on the website, and was replaced with Counterclass. Originally, 1048 was free to roam Site-24 before an incident caused its classification to change. The changed document states that 1048 is believed to still be within the building, but it is unknown as to where. If found, it's to be contained immediately, and any instances of its creations are to be destroyed on site unless specified. And no teddy bears are allowed in Site-24 as to prevent any confusion. Honestly, that part is a little funny. As you continue to read, Builder-Bear is described as being around 33 centimeters, around 13 inches tall, with no unusual properties emanating from it, despite its ability to walk around on its own. Through a small range of gestures, 1048 is able to communicate with staff, but only seems to when it wishes, and answers no questions as to its anomalous origins. This is either a choice it makes knowingly, or it genuinely doesn't have any knowledge of this. Upon initial interactions, 1048 was known to give affection to those it found endearing, using small gestures like hugging their legs, dancing, jumping in place, and in two particular instances, it was seen drawing a picture for two members of the custodial staff. Sadly, 7 months after arriving on Site-24, anomalous activity was reported, and this affectionate behavior was called into question. Dr. Carver, who seems to be the lead researcher on this, suggests this false sense of security was to collect materials to produce its creations, 3 of which being known to staff. Reminder, I will only discuss A and C, not B, so if you're curious, do your own research. And here's a timestamp for the description of A. So if body horror and trypophobia make you uncomfortable, skip this section. Besides a censored visual for SCP-1048-A, there will be no other visuals regarding this. Now, we should continue. SCP-1048-A was first spotted walking around Site-24 alongside 1048. A looked similar in size and shape to 1048, except it was constructed using only human ears. 1048 looked to be giving a tour when staff attempted to contain both subjects. 1048-A emitted a high-frequency shriek that inflicted intense pain in the eyes and ears of anyone within 10 meters, around 32 feet. However, anyone within 5 meters, around 16 feet, of the two subjects began developing ear-like growths all over their body, and within 3 minutes, all those afflicted were dead by asphyxiation. Another researcher was later discovered to have been missing an ear, but there were no others who had a similar fate. This begged the question as to where the other ears that made up 1048-A came from, or if, disturbingly, 1048 could create duplicates. Okay, so despite the visual this story put into my head, I rather like the approach this was taken in. Something I'd like to note is that we don't have any origin as to where the Builder-Bear comes from. Unlike Karos, whose origins are not airtight, we have a better known origin to where it came from that gives us a better understanding. There have been no known origins, which makes this creature even more confusing. These small snippets of information help to give us a better understanding of Karos, but I also believe this makes 1048 a more imposing threat. The nature of this creature being truly mysterious allows for many questions to be asked, usually leaving the reader with little to no answers sometimes. But it allows for a wide range of theories from the community. The insane details about where the ears could have come from, how its creation was able to produce such a sound capable of such catastrophic events when 1048 was shown no known anomalous properties until that moment. The only logical decision for the other ears is that they were most likely replicated. However, there was no extra detail about whether the ears were of different size, shape, or color. It's never explained, which I think also gives more mystery to this creature. Now, on to SCP-1048-C. While in the process of writing the incident involving 1048-B, 1048-C was spotted by Dr. Craver in his office. This bear was made of rusted metal scraps, and upon being sighted, 1048-C fled the scene. While running, this creature violently maimed those it came across during the pursuit, resulting in the death of a redacted amount of staff. Redacted information is actually very commonly found within documents on the wiki, which also is extremely amazing to see. Research I found suggests that this information could be a mix of authors being unsure of what to type, or a means of furthering the plot along. This aspect of the community works rather well for me, as it makes it so there isn't an absurd amount of numbers for the sake of shock value, kind of like some creepypastas from the early 2010s. I absolutely adore this story, as I do Karos. Karos a little more so. There are a few issues I had with it, mainly regarding 1048B and the material it possesses. However, that is more of a personal thing. I am rather thankful that not too much detail was put into that aspect of the story, and any extreme or over the top implications were redacted for the sake of others. Due to this community's quality controls, which I've seen with my own eyes, stories are heavily looked over for any extreme implications. This community is extraordinary, and I'm so happy not only to see the growth it has made over the years, but also how very loving and accepting to those of all walks of life they are. I wish for the SCP Foundation to continue to thrive, even when the world is dark, more so than the monsters within their facilities. And with that, I think I should end this off here. Thank you so much to anyone who will watch this video of me just discussing these two stories. Just know my Karos Plus shall be ordered soon, I promise you that. I have a few other SCPs I wish to discuss, as well as my other interests, such as Transformers, grimdark stories, creepypasta, analog horror, and hopefully horror games. I just have to not be a big baby. Either way, thank you, and maybe I'll see you in the future. Bye bye! Just a side note, if my voice groggy change is a little bad, I think I should point out that the last half of this was recorded while I was dealing with allergies or sickness. I don't know which. We'll find out soon, I guess. But anyway, thank you for listening and staying till the very end. That was very sweet of you. Um, you guys have a good day. Bye. Hey, puppy. Puppy, do you have anything to say? Yeah, you're a good girl, Freya.